Well, former US Marine Paul Whelan sits languishing in a Russian jail since 2018 for alleged spy charges. Controversial American basketball star Brittany Griner walked free from a Russian jail after spending the last 10 months detained after being found in possession of vaping products containing THC. Now, the self-confessed hater of the US is heading back home after the US President Joe Biden negotiated a prisoner exchange for Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout for Griner's freedom. And some Americans aren't happy about the prisoner swap. Well, joining us to discuss how the prisoner swap deal has been received and what went down is the Informer's US correspondent, Katie Dixon. Welcome, Katie.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good, thanks. Now, Katie, it seems some Americans aren't happy about the swap of a basketball player for an arms dealer, with Brittany Griner Hates America trending.
Absolutely. And this definitely seems like it's not necessarily a Democrat or a Republican debate. It's how did we swap such a horrible human being? When you look at it, when you look at why he was in prison, child soldiers and all kinds of horrible things. How did we swap someone like that for a basketball player who, like you said, has expressed how she essentially hates America? She said that if they played the national anthem, that she wasn't going to go out there. She was going to sit in the locker rooms. And if they decided to play the national anthem all year, then she would stay in the locker rooms all year. And obviously, many people take that as a hate for America. And then here she goes getting caught with, THC in her vape. To some, might not be a big deal, but obviously you're in Russia. That's the laws, just like if we were to come home to Australia, that's the laws there. Whereas in different states over here, you can have marijuana use and things like that. So, she gets thrown in jail, gets 9 years, and she's been in there since, I think, 9 months now. And here we go trading one of the biggest arms dealers in the world, who was called the Merchant of Death, for a basketball player that doesn't love America. So it's a lot of people are saying, how are you going to say you hate America, but when you get in trouble, you're calling America saying, why aren't you helping me? So it has definitely been something that's really thrown people off this past week. And the exchange happened earlier. What's quite interesting is, like in the movies, is that's exactly how the exchange happened. I don't know if you read that, but they met in Abu Dhabi on a tarmac out there, and the Merchant of Death and Griner passed each other in the middle of the tarmac as they walked towards their respective countries that were picking them up. They didn't look at each other, but that's how it played out.
Now, I mentioned Paul Whelan, who was locked up in 2018. I think he's been sentenced to 16 years for alleged espionage charges. But it's not only Paul Whelan. I read there were 32 other Americans currently in prison in Russia as well. Why has Biden done a deal for one basketball player, as you said, for one of the worst, but the other Americans still sit languishing in Russian jails as well?
I apologize, we've got technical difficulties with the camera. There are many soldiers over there, that have served their country, and that's the big debate. These men served their country, especially Whelan. He was picked up for espionage charges, which are unproven. The United States has even come out and said that they are false claims and denied them. And here he is still in jail. Actually, earlier this year, the US did secure the release of another former Marine, Trevor Reed. And obviously, Whelan was left behind, and everyone thought that, Whelan was next on the list to try to get out. And here he is again, left over there. What's interesting is that Whelan's family has come out and said they understand. So I'm not sure what the government said to the family, but from what we're reading online and whatnot, Russia wasn't playing. Basically, it was the Merchant of Death for Griner. That was it. Whereas America went in thinking this was going to be a 2-for-1 deal. The Merchant of Death is worth a lot more than a basketball player. It seems that even the government felt that as well, but Russia was not having it. And in fact, just so I pronounced his name correctly, in fact, Russia did want to actually trade for somebody else that we had. And of course, I can't find it now. Valid Kozakov, I think was his name. I apologize. He was a KGB colonel, and they tried to exchange the Merchant of Death and this colonel in exchange for Whelan and Griner, and that wasn't happening. And you look at it and you go, these are horrible criminals that have, the colonel was working, with the Taliban and things like that. These are horrible, horrible people. Whereas here we have a girl that just got caught with THC. So it's interesting what we're being fed over here. If Russia is just playing hardball on this, what is going to happen next? They haven't released any information as such about if Whelan, they're going to try to start getting him out, how that's going to go. They haven't really released a lot. All they've really said is that they're happy that the Griner's home, and that, the family of Whelan hopes that he will be next. But Whelan has actually come out himself and said he doesn't understand why he's still there. So that'd be a hard pill to swallow for anyone, I think. I think you could agree, when you've served your country and you've been in jail over there for several years already, and a basketball player that gets caught with THC gets traded. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, you've got to ask, like, what makes Griner so special? Again, for the swap for the merchant of death, but even what is it that made Griner the one that they thought that they could swap, that this would be the button they could push to get back the merchant of death?
From what I understand and what I'm reading, that was the only trade that Russia was going to do. That's who they wanted. That's who they straight out said they wanted. There, of course, are the reports that Griner is a lesbian. She is a wife, and she is Black, and so of course you've got reports like that where people are saying the Biden administration felt immense pressure from that community. And you're always going to have that debate, and whether it's true or not, that's always something that comes up and people will consider. If it just came down to getting one American out and that's all that Russia would do, perhaps that's really what happened and the way to go. But so many people are upset. And the one thing I noticed when I first moved to America too is this country is very patriotic. And some could say that has swayed a little bit over the last few years, for whatever reason, I'm not sure. But still, there is so many patriotic people here. And when it comes to our soldiers and bringing them home and veterans and things like that, they fight for them. And so many people are just so upset. Not even that it's just a woman that said she hated America, it's a basketball player, and no one should be left over there. But why are we trading a basketball player that hates America for a soldier that served his country, and the US has denied the charges as well?
Yeah, I remember some of the not outcry, but some of the discussion around when Trump managed to repatriate some of the soldiers back from North Korea, their remains, and they said he shouldn't be dealing with the North Korean, but they were grateful that those American soldiers' remains were brought back. And here we are seeing another American ex serviceman being left to languish.
Absolutely. And back early this year in April, when another, a serviceman was brought home in a trade, Whelan's family actually criticized the Biden government for leaving him behind. But now they're saying that they understand, and the tune has kind of changed, which makes you wonder what that conversation was about, because a representative actually went to their home and talked to them before this news broke. So, of course, there's always things going on behind the scenes that we just don't know about. But the story that they're going with is that Russia was not playing ball. They decided what they wanted to do, who they wanted to trade for, and America could just not trade two of the worst criminals in the world at this time. So that's kind of the story. But nonetheless, Americans are very upset.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Paul Whelan's brother, David Whelan, has come out and defended Biden about the criticism and saying that hopefully this will keep attention on his brother. But we need to ask, Katie, at what point does the American government say to American citizens, do not go to Russia? Because this is as foreseeable as what it is preventable.
Look, and that's the thing, whether you go to Russia, whether you go to Ukraine, Iraq, Afghanistan, a lot of people that are going there are probably not going there for a vacation, certainly not Iraq or Afghanistan. But I think it's a very difficult relationship to balance with these countries, not just in letting our citizens go over there as tourists, but obviously diplomatic relations as well. Whelan was actually over there for a wedding at the time, and they said that he was handed a USB drive that contained sensitive information. That's where they're claiming this espionage came from. Of course, like I said, the US is denying it, but he was simply over there for a wedding. So they haven't talked about anything. The US government hasn't said anything about not traveling there at this time. And honestly, I think unless it's a big kind of case that's in the spotlight like this, like Brittany and a lot of the supporters of Brittany, the community, they all stepped up, and obviously they felt upset that she got arrested on what many would perceive as such little charges. You know, how are you going to go to jail for 9 years over some THC? But that's the rules, you know, just like whether you're an immigrant coming to this country, we've talked about that before, crossing the border. That's the rules of this country. That's the rules of America. She was aware of it. And again, she knew the rules. She did the crime and was convicted for it. Whelan was accused of a crime that he didn't commit, that the US government is saying he didn't commit, and he's stuck over there. So it's sad for the Whelan family. Obviously, Griner's family is ecstatic. We don't want anyone left behind over there, but certainly, like I said, everyone is very upset that we've left a serviceman and many others, like you said, over there as well.
And the merchant of death is off on his merry way to do who knows what.
He is, and according to reports, he was to carry out the remainder of his sentence in Russia, which I think it's safe to say that might not happen, but there were reports of him hugging his family upon arriving back in Russia, whereas that wouldn't have been something he could have done if he was kept in prison over here. So he's seeing the benefits of that trade as well already.
Yeah, and I'm sure the rest of the world wouldn't be happy with an arms dealer who's impacted so many nations as well with his trade.
Absolutely not. And it's not just the trade of arms dealing. It was just horrible things that he did with child soldiers and just horrible. I don't know. I read about it today and it was just sickening to read almost. And it just makes you wonder why we would release anyone like that, period. You know, how are we going to release someone that killed people in the most grotesque ways, even for Whelan, who served his country, understandably, but he is a hero. He served our country. He didn't do the things the Merchant of Death did. So you'd even question releasing such a horrible person for a serviceman as well. But this is the deal that they've made, and we've just got to go with it.
All right, Katie, we'll leave it there. So Katie Dixon all the way from Paris, Texas. We'll talk next week for our last time before Christmas.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Katie.